and in-depth discussions of the harsh realities of war. On the Brink podcast with Philip Ingram.
Olaf Scholz broke ranks with other European leaders this week when he had a telephone call with Vladimir Putin in what I see as a cynical attempt to boost his chances in next year's elections in Germany. The truth is, no just peace for Ukraine will ever come from negotiations with Vladimir Putin. He negotiates in bad faith and always goes on to break his word. Putin will only stop when he is stopped. But what about the Ukrainians? What do they think? And you know, I've been saying for 8 years now that we need to see Russia through Ukrainian eyes and we need to give the Ukrainians more respect. Well, Alexei Mikheyev, who is Ukraine's ambassador to Berlin, said the following. Putin always lies, both during and about conversations. My president warned the Chancellor about this. Telephone calls deep into Russian territory do not bring peace and do not prevent escalation. From the Russian perspective, they pave the way to Minsk III. We are not going there. And what did a little bit of what President Zelensky said? His call, in my opinion, opens Pandora's box. There may be now other conversations and phone calls, just a lot of words. And this is exactly what Putin has long sought. It is critical for him to weaken his isolation as well as Russia's isolation and hold mere talks that will lead nowhere. So there is hope in Germany. The most likely successor to Olaf Scholz from the elections next year is Friedrich Merz. And Herr Merz has been hugely critical of Scholz's position on Ukraine, and in particular his steadfast refusal to allow Ukraine have the Taurus cruise missile, which the Ukrainians are so clear would be hugely useful to them in the defense of their country against Russia's invasion. But a lot does depend on what the makeup of the coalition would be. Certainly the Greens are very, very supportive of Herr Merz's position and are very, very strong on Ukraine. But I've got to say the mercantilist agenda runs very, very deep in Germany. So I would finish this short few words by suggesting to Herr Scholz what that great Britain during the Second World War, Winston Churchill, once said about appeasers. They are the ones who feed crocodiles, hoping that they will be eaten last.
The Black Sea, the HUR or the GUR, Ukraine's military intelligence, the successes that they're having there are phenomenal. From them pushing the Russian Black Sea fleet out of Crimea effectively, they're setting up a base in Russia, of sinking a third of it and damaging almost half of it, to the infamous commentary from 13 Ukrainian soldiers on the island, the small island called Snake Island, where they told a Russian warship of more than 500 people to go and do something to themselves, resulting in the infamous stamps that came out and the quotes that went around. The Black Sea is still a centre of conflict and reflects the Special Operations Executive type activity that the HUR or GUR are continuing to prosecute in this conflict, and actually undermining the operational level capability of the Russians, their ability to freely operate around the Black Sea, but also impacting in the land operations on their ability to refine oil and gas, to manufacture military components, logistic dumps, to fly aircraft from their airfields deep inside Russia. This is one area of Ukraine's fight against Russia that will become infamous, I think, whenever its true history is told. General Bodanov, the head of the GUR or HUR, is the Ukrainian general in charge of it. He himself is a commando, and there are reports that he goes out and takes part in some of the raids himself. It doesn't surprise me. He leads from the front, very much so, and his relationship with President Zelensky is very close indeed. But the Times article highlights how Snake Island was used as the stepping stone to go and take back two of the oil and gas rigs that had fallen into Russian hands. There are 12 in total in the area. The Russians were using them as radar sites, their observation sites to control activity that's going on and try and restrict Ukrainian freedom of movement inside the Black Sea. The Ukrainians were leading a raid, their special forces leading a raid against some of the oil and gas rigs that they do not control, but they're continuously attacking into them, making sure the Russians do not have an easy time living on board. And they talked of attacking in with rigid inflatable boats, with anti-aircraft missiles, Stinger missiles they carried, anti-tank missiles they carried, heavy machine guns, drones, FPV drones to attack in and kill the Russians. And every attack they're killing 5 or 6 Russians. How the Russians are resupplying them, I'm not sure, but I suspect it's helicopter from the mainland and getting resupplies and ammunition out fairly frequently. But as the HUR troops were attacking into the oil rig, they themselves were attacked by Su-30 jets, Russian jets, dropping cluster munitions and firing the 30mm cannons, trying to destroy these rigid inflatable boats to puncture the inflatable element of it. Luckily, on this particular raid, there was no damage done to the boats. However, one of the Russian Su-30 aircraft was shot down. This is an example of the real audacity that the Ukrainians are showing in some of the operations that they're prosecuting to keep the Russians on the back foot. All of this put together is slowly but surely hollowing out Russia's defences from behind. At some stage, their frontline defences and the areas that they're having limited success in attacking through with their meat grinder tactics in the east, at some stage those will collapse completely because there will be nothing left behind to come and reinforce it. I personally think that this will probably be by about mid-2025. And then if Ukraine can generate sufficient capability, that's when we're likely to see them attack in and have some major successes in recapturing territory. It wouldn't surprise me if Ukraine in the interim carries out more commando-type raids. And you never know, Crimea, I think, is well on the target. Keep in touch with them on the brink. We'll keep you up to speed with our weekend updates and look forward to seeing you again.